The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was folding laundry in my apartment. My mother's voice was bright, almost giddy, the kind of tone she uses when she's convinced she's done something clever. "Sweetheart, you won't believe the deal your father and I just closed. A timeshare in Clearwater. Paid in cash." I paused, a t-shirt halfway to the drawer. "Cash?" "From cleaning out the attic," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You know, all that old military junk from your grandfather? We finally got rid of it." The room went quiet. Not silent. I could still hear the hum of the heater, the distant murmur of traffic outside. But my mother's words seemed to hover in the air, disconnected from meaning. I looked up at the wall across from me, where my own service plaques hung in neat rows. My hands, still holding the shirt, felt suddenly cold. "What do you mean got rid of it?" I asked. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. "Oh, you know. Uniforms, papers, some metal thing. A pawn shop gave us a great price. Honestly, I'm surprised anyone wanted it. It was just gathering dust. Some metal thing." I sat down on the edge of the bed. My throat tightened, but I kept my tone even. "Which metal, Mom?" "I don't know, honey. Bronze, I think? Your father handled it." "Why?" "The Bronze Star. The one Grandpa earned at Normandy. The one he'd promised me the day I enlisted or when I'm gone," he'd said. "Because you'll understand what it cost. The one I'd been waiting to receive after the funeral, after probate, after everything settled. The one I thought was safe." I closed my eyes, took a breath. When I spoke again, my voice didn't shake. "I have to go." "Wait, are you upset?" "Sweetheart, it's just amazing." I ended the call. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that hums with pressure, like the air before a storm. I sat there, staring at my own plaques, and felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder. More deliberate. I picked up my phone again. This time, I didn't call my mother back. I opened Google. Grandpa James was a quiet man. The kind who measured his words carefully, as if each one had weight. He never talked about the war. Not at family dinners, not on Veterans Day, not even when my uncle would press him after a few beers. He'd just shake his head and change the subject. But he talked to me. Once I was 22, fresh out of basic training, still getting used to the uniform. I'd driven to his house to show him before my first deployment. He was in the garage, organizing his toolbox. And when I walked in, he stopped. Just stood there, wrench in hand, looking at me. Then he set the wrench down, walked to a cabinet in the corner, and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside were his dog tags. He pressed them into my palm, closed my fingers around them, and said, "You'll take care of these better than I have." I started to protest, but he shook his head. "The Bronze Star goes to you too. When I'm gone, because you'll understand what it cost." That was it. That was the conversation. But it was enough. 3 years ago, I stood at his funeral in my dress uniform, holding those same dog tags in my pocket. My parents were named executors of his estate. I trusted them. They were his son and daughter-in-law. They'd handled everything. The house, the accounts, the belongings. When I asked about the medals, my mother said, "We'll take care of it, sweetheart. Don't worry." So I didn't. I should have. My parents aren't cruel people. They're not villains. They're just practical. Aggressively, relentlessly practical. My mother believes that sentimentality is a character flaw. She once stood in Grandpa's living room, looked at his Purple Heart display hanging above the mantel, and said, "All this dusty clutter. I don't know why he kept it." My father's the same. When I came home from my deployment and showed him photos, pictures of my unit, the base, moments I wanted to remember, he glanced at them and said, "You're living in the past. You need to move forward." While I was overseas, they remodeled Grandpa's old room, tore out the bookshelves where he kept his uniform, the desk where he used to sit and read, painted over the pale green walls, installed a Peloton and a mirrored wall, a home gym. When I visited and saw it, my mother beamed. "Doesn't it look so much better?" So much more useful. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Because here's what I've come to understand about my parents. They genuinely cannot see the difference between a bronze star and a garage sale lamp. To them, both are objects. Both take up space. Both have a market value. And one of those values is higher. So why wouldn't you sell? They didn't steal Grandpa's medal out of malice. They sold it because they don't believe anything has value unless it's liquid. Unless it can be spent. Unless it can buy something tangible, like a timeshare in Clearwater. And somehow, that makes it worse. I waited until the next morning to call them back. I needed the night to think, to cool down, to decide how I was going to handle this without losing control. When my mother answered, I kept my voice level. Professional, almost. Hey Mom, I wanted to ask you a few more questions about the stuff from Grandpa's attic. Frau, honey. Her tone was light, dismissive. Are you still worried about that? It was just sitting there. We didn't think you'd mind. I'm not upset. I lied. I just want to understand what was sold. Can you give me an itemized list? There was a pause. An itemized list? Sweetheart. We didn't exactly keep receipts. It's been 3 years since he passed. We finally cleaned things out. That's all. So you don't have paperwork? From the sale. She laughed. Actually laughed. Honey, we're not hoarders. We're not gonna file away a pawnshop receipt like it's a tax document. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my tone calm. Do you at least have the buyer's contact information? The name of the pawnshop? I don't know. Your father handled it. Hold on. I heard muffled voices, the phone being passed. Then my father's voice, clipped and impatient. What's this about? I'm just trying to understand what happened to Grandpa's things. Specifically, his bronze star. It was sold, along with some other items. Why does it matter? It matters because he promised it to me. My father sighed. The kind of sigh that says, here we go again. Look. Those things aren't even real bronze, you know. It's just a name. And frankly, he's gone. He doesn't care what happens to it now. I closed my eyes. Counted to 3. Do you remember which pawn shop you sold it to? No. There were a couple we went to. I don't keep track of things like that. My mother's voice chimed in from the background, louder now, like she'd leaned closer to the phone. Sweetheart, you're overreacting. Grandpa would have wanted us to enjoy life. He wouldn't want you obsessing over a piece of metal freight. It's not a piece of metal, Mom. It's a bronze star. It's a military honor freight. And you can't put a price on memories, she shot back. So why does the physical metal matter? You have your memories of him. Isn't that enough? I didn't answer right away. Because the logic was so twisted, so perfectly designed to make me feel unreasonable, that I didn't trust myself to respond without snapping. My father jumped in. Honestly, I think you're projecting. This whole military obsession of yours, it's like you're making Grandpa's death about yourself. That one landed. It was meant to. But I didn't take the bait. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I said, very quietly, I just want to make sure everything was handled legally. Silence. Then my mother's voice. Sharper now. What does that mean? Just that some military items have rules. Restrictions. I'm going to look into it. Rules. My father's tone shifted. Not quite defensive. Not quite nervous. But close. What are you talking about? I'm not sure yet, I said. But I'll let you know what I find. You're being ridiculous, my mother said. This is exactly the kind of drama we don't need right. I hung up. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the phone in my hand. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed faintly. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From fury. The kind that sits low in your chest and burns slow. But I didn't call them back. I didn't yell. I didn't send a long, angry text message. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up Google, and typed, Is it illegal to sell inherited military medals at the censure landing? The research started simply. A Google search. A few clicks. But within an hour, I was deep into federal statute pages, military regulations, and legal forums I didn't even know existed. The Stolen Valor Act came up first. Then military insignia protections. Then, buried in a DoD memorandum from 2018, I found it bronze stars tied to verified service records are considered federally protected items. Selling them isn't automatically illegal, but misrepresenting ownership or provenance can trigger investigations, especially if the sale happened without documented heir consent. Especially if it bypassed proper probate procedures. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out a folder I'd kept since Grandpa's funeral. Inside was a copy of his DD-214, his official discharge document. I'd requested it years ago, back when I was applying for a veteran's scholarship and needed proof of lineage. I'd kept it, just in case. Now I was glad I had. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the VA Inspector General's hotline. When the representative answered, I kept my tone measured. "Hi. I have a hypothetical question about inherited military medals." The woman on the other end was patient. Kind even. She walked me through the regulations. Medals tied to verified combat service, she explained, are considered items of national interest. If sold improperly, without clear chain of custody, without heir acknowledgement, they can be recovered. The VA doesn't prosecute families, usually. But they do investigate. And if the medal is located, they can intervene. "So it's possible to get it back?" I asked. "If you can provide documentation and locate the item." "Yes. It's possible." I thanked her and hung up. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something other than anger. Not revenge, not even vindication. Just possibility. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of my parents' texts. The probate records that explicitly named me as the beneficiary for personal military effects. A photo I'd taken at Grandpa's funeral, just a candid shot of the medal in its case, sitting on the memorial table. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now it was evidence. I pulled up Google Maps and searched for pawn shops in my parents' area. Cross-referenced them with Google reviews. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I scrolled through my mother's Facebook page. She'd posted about the timeshare purchase 2 weeks ago, complete with photos and a date. I matched that timeline to her tagged locations in the weeks prior. 2 pawn shops appeared multiple times. I called the first one. Kept my voice casual. "Hi, I'm a collector. I'm looking for WWII Bronze Stars. Have you acquired any recently?" Benign. They'd hung up. I called the second shop. Same script. This time, the man on the other end hesitated. Then, "We don't discuss inventory over the phone." I wrote down both names. Both addresses. Then I went back to the VA website and filled out a formal inquiry. I attached Grandpa's DD-214, the probate documents, the photo. I explained, in careful, unemotional language, what had happened. I didn't accuse my parents of theft. I didn't use the word stolen. I just laid out the facts and asked for guidance. Sure, hit submit. And then I waited. The waiting was agonizing. Every day I checked my email. Every day, nothing. But I didn't chase it. I didn't follow up. I didn't tell my parents what I'd done. I didn't tell anyone. Because patience, I was learning, is its own kind of power. And silence can be the loudest move you make. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "Why is the VA contacting us?" Her voice was shrill, higher than normal. Panicked, I kept my tone even. "I filed an inquiry about Grandpa's effects. It's standard procedure for beneficiaries." "Standard? You reported us." "I didn't report anyone, Mom. I asked questions about items I was legally entitled to." There was a rustling sound, voices in the background, and then my father's voice cut in. He'd taken the phone. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You're making trouble for us over a piece of metal." I didn't rise to it. I didn't match his anger. I just recited facts. The probate documents named me as the beneficiary for Grandpa's personal military effects. That includes his medals. "You sold the Bronze Star without my written consent." "That's not just a family issue, Dad. It's a legal one. Bronze Stars tied to verified service records are federally protected items." Silence, then my mother's voice again. Softer now. Pleading. "We'll buy you something nice. A new watch. Or we can give you some of the timeshare weeks. Just let this go. It's not about money." "Mom, help then." "What is it about?" "It's about what was taken." My father's voice came back, harder now. "You want to play it this way? Fine, we'll cut you off. Don't expect anything from us ever again." I almost laughed. "Dad, I'm 34 years old. I haven't asked you for anything in a decade. I'm financially independent. This isn't about inheritance. This is about respect." The line went quiet. Then my mother said, voice tight, "You've made your point." And she hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't crying. I just felt empty. And certain. 2 days later, I got a call from a VA investigator. A man named Robert Chen. He was calm, professional, and he had news. "We've located the medal," he said. "It's currently in the possession of a memorabilia dealer in Sarasota. He purchased it from a pawn shop about a month ago." When we contacted him and explained the situation, he was horrified. He's a veteran himself. He's voluntarily returning the medal to federal custody pending resolution. I closed my eyes. "Thank you, there's more," he continued. "Your parents may face administrative penalties. Nothing criminal, but there will be a formal censure on record. If they're ever named executors of another veteran's estate, this will be flagged." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand. You have two options," he said. "You can press for full legal recovery, which may involve a formal hearing. Or you can accept mediated return, which is faster and less adversarial." I didn't hesitate. Mediation. "I just want the medal back." "And thank you. There's more," he continued. "Your parents may face administrative penalties. Nothing criminal, but there will be a formal censure on record. If they're ever named executors of another veteran's estate, this will be flagged." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I understand. You have two options," he said. "You can press for full legal recovery, which may involve a formal hearing. Or you can accept mediated return, which is faster and less adversarial." I didn't hesitate. Mediation. "I just want the medal back." "Understood. We'll arrange the transfer." 3 weeks later, I stood in a small conference room at the local VA office. There was no ceremony, really, just Mr. Chen, a witness, and me. He handed me a wooden case. I opened it. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was Grandpa's Bronze Star. The bronze still gleamed. The ribbon was slightly frayed, but intact. I ran my thumb over the surface. It was heavier than I remembered. Cold. Real notcher. Meals notcher. Shook my hand. "Your grandfather earned this at Normandy. It belongs with someone who understands that." I nodded. I couldn't speak. That night I got an email from my mother. No subject line. Just 2 words. "Happy now." I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my laptop without replying. I wasn't happy. But I wasn't broken either. I'd set a boundary. I'd enforced it. And I'd brought something sacred back home. That was enough. The medal sits in a shadow box now, mounted on the wall in my living room, right beside my own service ribbons. Sometimes, when the afternoon light comes through the window, it catches the bronze and makes it glow. Dick Dalise was never about punishing my parents. It was about refusing to let disrespect become normal. It was about drawing a line and saying some things matter more than convenience, more than cash, more than keeping the peace. I know the relationship with my parents is fractured now, maybe permanently. They haven't called. I haven't reached out. And honestly, I don't know if we'll ever sit at the same table again without that tension humming beneath the surface. I'm sad about that. I won't pretend I'm not, but I'm not guilty, because I didn't dishonor my grandfather by protecting what he earned. I honored him. I modeled the boundaries he would have quietly insisted on if he were still here. The kind of boundaries that say, you don't get to decide what's valuable in someone else's life. You don't get to sell what was never yours to begin with. Some things aren't ours to sell, even when we inherit them. Honor isn't transferable. It's held in trust. If you're listening to this and you've ever had someone in your family dismiss what you hold sacred, whether it's a medal, a memory, a promise, I want you to know, documentation isn't betrayal. Setting a boundary isn't cruelty. Sometimes protecting what matters is the most loving thing you can do. Grandpa's dog tags are still in my drawer. One day, if I have children, I'll pass them down. I'll tell them the story. I'll teach them what it means to carry something forward with care. And if I don't have children, I'll donate them to a military museum. Either way, the chain of memory continues. Because here's the truth. Grandpa James didn't fight at Normandy so his son-in-law could finance a timeshare in Clearwater. He fought because some things are worth defending, worth protecting, worth remembering, and I won't let him be remembered as funding a vacation. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to protect something sacred, whether it's a piece of history, a boundary, or your own peace, I see you.